This is going to be a fun one. I'm putting together a pedal board for a client, and it's going to be a very unusual guitar pedal board. And there are some considerations that a lot of people aren't aware of when putting things like this together. And the client was certainly taken by surprise. He ordered a big package from Sweetwater, and it had this pedal board, which is a good choice. And it had a One Spot Pro power supply, which proved inadequate, and I'll tell you why. And they had a whole bunch of EBS pre-made patch cables. They were all just pre-made links, and some of them would not reach where it was necessary. Some of them would have lots of extra room and slack, and they weren't high quality, and I wouldn't trust them. You know, if you're just, I don't know, playing at your local church and your pedal board always stays there, maybe the EBS stuff is okay. We're going to be using real soldered connections, and I'll get to that. But the first thing, the reason that the One Spot Pro was the wrong power supply for this is that of these 7 pedals and a foot switch, 1, 2, 3 of them have center positive, and the others are center negative. Let's see, 2 of them take 12 volts, and 2 of them require, one of them 500 milliamps, the other one 400 milliamps. And the besides the fact that there weren't any, I think there was one positive center adapter in the kit that came with the One Spot Pro. It did not have the capacity to provide 2 12-volt DC taps at 400 milliamp. And this one, let's see, I've got a list here. The talking machine is tip positive, 9 volts, 200 milliamp. The data corruptor is tip negative, 9 volts, 26 milliamps. The Canyon is 9 volts, tip positive, 200 milliamps. The Hummingbird is tip negative, 9 volts, 10 milliamps. The Fuzz Factory is negative 9 volt, tip negative 9 volts, 3 milliamp. The Dub Siren, more on that, is tip positive 12 volts, 500 milliamp. And the Voice Live is negative 12, 400 milliamps. So I talked to my guy at Sweetwater, and he handled this on behalf of the client. So the EBS cable package and the One Spot Pro went back. This Pedal Power 3 came. I wanted to get the Pedal Power 3 Plus, which had some additional outlets, but they were back ordered, and the guy is starting a LA residency first week of January. So there was a certain amount of hurry up because he's going to be doing a residency at a place in LA and then doing a tour from there. So I needed to make a pedal board that would work every time without him thinking about it. So with this, I can have 2 12-volt, 500 milliamp supplies, and all the 9-volt supplies are up to 500 milliamps, so it can handle everything on here can be handled by this. And I've got various tip positive and tip negative cables in the same package, so I can put all this together. So then the next issue is the pedal layout. And he's doing, let's say, 3 distinct things. He's got this Voice Live. He runs his vocal mic into this and then out to the front of house. So this is separate from everything else, except it will be powered off the same Pedal Power 3. So this is off to the right, and he uses this a lot through the set. This box, this dubstep, he will not actually be using on the board, so I'll take it off right now, which means that he has a very nice surface here to use these foot switches. If it was here, this is kind of awkward, too close to the ground. It's hard to step on both of them. This way, it's got a nice little platform for his foot. Nothing else will be here when the pedal board is being used. There'll be a little strip of Velcro here to match a little strip of Velcro on the dub siren rather, for transit. So this will go on the board for transit, but in use, he actually will be picking this up and holding this in his hand. So I'm going to put a 9-volt adapter plug here that he can then plug. I got 2 6-foot 9-volt cables to go on tour, one for use, one as a backup. So he can plug the output of this into the input of the board and do all his crazy things live, and it's all powered from the board. And for transit, it can go here, but in use, it'll be like that on the stage to the side. So we've got the dubstep, which is only going to be used occasionally, not dubstep, dub siren, sorry. But it's not really on the board except for transit, aside from planning for a connection to its power cable. So we've got the data corrupter, the talking machine, and the fuzz factory. He never uses any of these 3 at the same time. So here's a good place to plug into the board. We're going to go into the data corrupter, to the talking machine, to the fuzz factory. Any one of those will be used at once, not all 3. So it doesn't really matter the sequence there. Then I talked to him about the hummingbird and canyon, and he wants the tremolo before the delays. So we're going to go out of the fuzz factory into the hummingbird, from there to the canyon, and then out of the output of the canyon is where it will go to the amp. So you plug in here, comes out here, nothing awkward where you're trying to plug into this or come out, plug into this, or et cetera, et cetera. So in this situation, we don't need to do an I/O box, an input-output box. On a larger pedal board, I would usually make a nice box, maybe over there, that has a buffer, and you plug in into there, and it comes out there, so all your connections to the amp are very simple. This doesn't have to be quite that level. And this tap switch box he's got here, this is one that came Mosky, pre-made thing. It's just a little momentary switch with a jack. My problem with boxes like this that are very small is that Velcro won't really hold that. There's not enough surface area, and it's just as tall pretty much as it is wide. And so I am making a new foot switch box about the same size as the Canyon or the Hummingbird. It's just going to have a momentary switch and a jack. It'll take up the same space, but because it'll be supported on 2 of these, it won't want to come off. The Velcro will actually do what it does. I could wish the ZVEX were a different layout as far as the foot switch goes, and it might end up going there. I'll play around with that. It doesn't really matter. Here's the input, here's the output. I'll play around with that. There's no real good way to step on one of these live because you always end up stepping on the knobs. It's a good sounding circuit, but I don't like the layout. I think they should have used a larger box. I've got size 14 feet. That's, which means I need really big socks. I like to have space between pedals, switches, and any knobs. And I'm just not sure that that's enough surface area for the Velcro compared to that, because all the stresses as you use it are this way. I'll get to that. But anyway, so I know the order that I want everything to be, and I know pretty much where they're going to go on the board. So the first thing to do is to install the pedal power on the bottom of the board. Then I think I'm going to do all the audio connections, and I'll be hand soldering, making custom wires for that. I'll show you the goodies I've got for that part of it. And then once all the audio is run, we will do the power supply cables and bundle all that up and try to get it so that it will not come undone. And it's very common to use cable tie anchor points that are double-sided taped to the bottom of the board. In my experience, the double-sided tape always comes off after time, and so it looks great when you start, but it falls apart. So I'm going to be doing some stuff that seems over the top with some machine screws, but will actually be very simple to do and very reliable and rugged, and it will not come loose. So let's get this installed and then we'll get started with the fun stuff. Well, it's frustrating when I'm handed a project like this rather than just starting it myself. I thought that bracket was included with the Pedalboard 3. If I'd been planning the whole thing from scratch, I would have researched that a bit better. But I've got the correct bracket on order. It should be here day after tomorrow, so we'll do the power later. So I'm going to go ahead and attach all the devices where they're going to go. So I need to lay down Velcro for that. And once they're all in place, then I'll start making the connections, the audio cables. And we're using these little plugs like this. Real nice things on a pedal board. They'll be soldered. They're a bit smaller than the Switchcraft. Let me get in some tight spaces, which is really good because this Canyon, they're right up against each other. It would have been really nice if Electro-Harmonix had spaced these jacks farther apart, because you can't use right angle jacks unless you're using these tiny ones, or maybe the George L and similar style solderless things. But it really, if these were spaced out more, then you could have one going that way, one going this way, a little more versatility on a board. So that really needs to go about there with that gap in the spaces in the slats here. And I want to make sure that the left side of the Canyon, its jack, is not standing out from the board, just so nothing gets dinged in transit. I'm trying to be aware of all these things, where they're going to physically be in use and in transit. And this layout is pretty good. And I've got enough leeway for the tap foot switch box, which will actually be more like that. That's not going to be an issue. That box should be here any day this week, and a couple other little goodies I ordered for this. But first of all, I want to mark where the Velcro is going to go on the board. All right, I want Velcro for all these things here, and I want Velcro for this. And I'd like to not have Velcro here because he's going to be stepping on this, and Velcro fuzzy stuff doesn't hold up well to your foot being on it, and you get a bunch of dust in there. And I'm going to make a little connector for the power cable that goes to this, and I'd rather screw that into metal rather than through Velcro. So I'm going to leave a gap here and just put Velcro here where that's going to be. So easiest way to do that for myself is to mark it off with some painter's tape. It doesn't have to be perfect 90 degrees. And that tells me where the Velcro goes. So now I'll get all this off. I'm not showing all this because I think most people understand how scissors work. You can, and I have in the past, run it over the edge and then use an X-Acto or a razor blade to get it exactly flush. You run the risk of scoring the paint if you do that, though it's aluminum, so it won't rust or anything. But honestly, it makes no real difference. The owner of this board won't care. He's not going to be getting out here and looking at that stuff. He wants to know that everything works well every night. One thing I did do, which is important, is on the top one and on the bottom one, the Velcro doesn't go all the way to the edge, because if you have a flap there, that adhesive gets exposed to air and dirt gets on it and it comes loose. So a little bit of overhang on this side, none on this edge. That's important, and it doesn't go all the way to the end for the same reason, on purpose. But we now have the places where the pedals are going to go. And we'll do an additional one later for that dub siren just to hold it in place in transit. The next thing I got to do is take all this old Velcro off and take off any rubber feet, because those rubber feet will keep that Velcro from making contact. I want to have everything fresh and clean. Odds are I'll have to open up some of these pedals and clean pots and clean hardware and stuff. So I'll make sure I don't block any of the screws. But this is boring stuff. This old Velcro is on here pretty well. It's going to involve some pliers and some cussing. It's going to take a while, so we'll skip ahead a bit, brother. Okay, all the old Velcro and stick'ems and stuff and rubber foot pads off the bottoms of the enclosures. All the jacks tightened, all the nuts tightened, all that fun stuff. All the screws tightened. A lot of them were loose. I'll probably, once I have everything connected and can hear things, have to do some minor repairs on some of the pedals because they've had a hard life. Such is the way of the world. Some stubborn bits of old stickum I removed with Goo Gone. You can also use naphtha, but Goo Gone's a little bit easier to use inside. And then I cleaned off the bottoms with some isopropyl alcohol to get any Goo Gone off and let that evaporate. We've got a good clean surface now for the adhesive to attach to, so it'll be strong. And I want to make sure that I am not blocking serial numbers or any screws. So let me do that first. I'm doing this TC Helicon first because it's the most problematic as far as that goes. The others are pretty straightforward. I just want to make sure that, especially in the case of the Helicon where all the instructions are on the back, that all that stuff remains visible. I need to trim that just a little bit more. I'm not going to show everyone that I do. The process is the same, but keeping in mind the need for good surface area as much as we can get without messing up serial numbers and stuff. Most of the other pedals lost their serial numbers previously, so at some point it is what it is. We're going to go between these two screws. And right about down the half. This one here. I know this is really fascinating to look at, but it's a lot of little details that if you get it right, you have a better long-term experience using it. All right, so let's put this on the board where it's going to go. This one, I'm just doing I'll only be doing a power run to. I don't have to worry about the audio cabling on it. That's going to be good. All right. Now to do the others. The others will be easier. But again, before I do all that, I want to put the jacks back in place where they're going to go so I can get the spacing right. Now comes the part where there's more than just a little bit of measuring and using scissors. I'm going to make the cables to go between everything. So let's start with that one right there. This will make a nice cable. I'll go through there, and once I get one end on, I will come back and fine tune the placement. And I like to leave as much space between pedals as possible so that you don't step on this when you mean to step on this, and vice versa. And there'll be a tap tempo box here later. Let me move this to the bench and do some solder stuff. All right, this is some Canary G6, is it G6A cable? I'll look it up. And these are the SP500 series. I'll put a description right now of what the actual brand and model are. I get them at Redco Audio to answer the inevitable question. But these plugs are really nice. The positive has its own terminal. The negative has its. This little flap of insulation comes down. The back goes on. This cable fits very neatly. We'll have strain relief. And unlike Switchcraft, which has those damn flathead screws, which are difficult to do, this has Phillips head screws, which are easy to do when you're not trying to do it one-handed on camera, but certainly much easier than the flathead stuff. And once I get these in, the whole thing should, there it goes, should lock very well. Good strain relief on this cable. If it was really, really critical, I might do some shrink wrap as well, but I think it'll be just fine the way it is. And once I'm sure that every cable is working, that I did not make any mistakes, I'll go through with some Loctite or probably just some clear nail polish to help keep those from ever vibrating out. This cable, like larger diameter guitar cable, has got that outer jacket. It's got the copper braid. Then it has a black conductive layer over the clear center conductor insulation. And that black conductive layer has to be stripped back, as you saw in the picture, otherwise things short out. I'm going to take this and put it where it's going to go and make sure that I want just a little bit of slack. I don't want any tension on these when they're in place. Make sure my measurement is good. I don't need to adjust it further. Okay, my measurement is good. All right, so if that one's like that and that one's like this, it needs to go, the braid needs to go down. Some braids are easier to work with than others. This one is annoyingly sturdy, which, you know, it's a sign of good quality, but it certainly makes doing this bit a little more difficult. So all that twisted together at that angle for it to assemble the way I want. And now on this one, you can use strippers. Sometimes you got to cut that jacket off with the blade as well. You just want to get rid of that black conductor. And now we will eyeball this. Got this old effective pedal here, which I just use as a plug holder for this kind of work. So to the right, and then strip off. And this stuff strips very nicely. A lot of shielded wire like this, especially the stuff we use inside guitar amps, doesn't want to strip. So twist that. I'll get that to go through if I need to tin it first. I need to tin that first. Just tinning the end of it. Lets it go through without splaying out. I press that down. It's hard to do this with a camera here. Got a little partial melted insulation, but it won't be a problem here. The other ones I'll be doing without filming them, so I'll physically be able to get closer to the work. All right, I want to tin this. Go ahead and tin where it's going to solder to. Snip off a little bit of excess. Take off my glasses so I can see. And the reason I'm not going through the hole in that little solder connector with the braid is physically too large for that to fit. Bend this down a little bit. That's why I did this one from the bottom, so the insulation is between the conductor and the metal frame. And put this together and go see how it fits in the other room. Actually, there's one more critical step. Make sure that we don't have any shorts in the cable itself. If you don't strip back that black conductor, you will. All right, that's good. So now we'll see if we have continuity from tip to tip and sleeve to sleeve. We'll do sleeve to sleeve first. Yep, tip to tip. It's hard to hold it against it. Yep. All right, that cable, as far as the meter is concerned, is good. Let's go put it in place and see what things look like. All right, I'm pleased with that. It's got just enough slack that there's no strain on it. If you need to unplug something, it's not going to pull on anything. But not so much that there's a big bundle of cables there that I need to secure otherwise. So this is low mass enough that that doesn't need any tie downs. So now I just got to do a bunch of more, do all the others. The others will be simpler, except for this one that goes from here to here. And that one I'll need to steer maybe along the bottom. Let's see, maybe along the bottom edge to come up here, and that'll get secured beneath. That'll be the longest run, but no big whoop. 2 hours later. That's including lunch, but you know, I work pretty quick. But you know, want to take your time when you're soldering cables like this. All the audio connections are done. I still have one connection left to make once I get the new tap tempo box. So the next thing I'm going to do is go get some cabling management stuff so I can keep these things, you know, really tied down well, so that nothing flops around and gets torn accidentally in transit. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, much better. These bars, the structure of the pedal train, are aluminum. So these are number 8 sheet metal screws, 3/8 inch. And you just pre-drill. I did a pre-drilled with a very small bit. Then I enlarged that to 1/8 of a bit. And then the sheet metal stainless steel could cut into the threads could cut into the aluminum. And these little 1/4 inch cable clamps fit these just fine.
And while I could order something smaller, they will be more than fine for retaining the power connectors once they're in place. Once the Pedal Power 3 is mounted where it's going to be. And life will be good at that point. Like I said, I don't like the cable tie anchor points that are held on by double-sided tape. They always come loose. But I think this is going to be very good. Remember, the tap tempo goes here. And I'm debating whether to put some Velcro to hold this in place for travel or not. And my thought on that is if there's Velcro here and he steps on it, that Velcro will get funked up. Whereas he can just keep this in the outer part of the bag for this, or I can put some new rubber feet on it so that when it's in transit in the bag, it stays there. I'll talk to him about it because he's not going to be using this here live. This would just be for storage. And I don't want there to be Velcro here that his shoes mess up over time. I might be overthinking that. I'll talk to him about it, but there's plenty of room to have it stored there in transit.